You always see people complain about being hard stuck, saying their team is holding them back or the matchmaking is forcing them on losing streaks. But because if you're not even aware of how the game is supposed to be played correctly, it makes sense that you would feel powerless and defeated about why you can't seem to have enough impact over the outcome of the game. However, if you look at high-ranked people, they all agree you can pretty much win all by yourself, but that's only if you understand the fundamentals of the game and how to abuse them. So if you also have trouble carrying and winning games, don't worry. In this video I'll be explaining the key concepts behind Marvel Rivals so that you'll easily learn how to play the game correctly in order to actually have an impact in your games by being a fundamentally good player. This entire game is mostly based around 6 concepts: corners, cooldowns, teammates, objectives, roles, and lastly, push and pull. But while you might already have an idea about some of these, it's still important to understand all of them so that you'll easily be able to actually apply them to your gameplay, because they're like the building blocks of a house. If you don't make sure all of them are right, then your house will collapse. So I still highly recommend watching the whole video, even if some of these things already sound familiar to you. Now, the first concept is corners. A corner is a structure on the map which separates 2 directions or lines of sight. This might seem irrelevant, but corners are the building block of playing well and ranking up, because they allow us to choose our engagements and reduce the chance of dying randomly to the millions of things that can kill us, like spam damage, getting dived or chased. But I'm not expecting you to try to dodge and weave every single thing that can kill you. So let me explain this a little bit. Imagine you're a rocket sitting behind your team in the open. You feel safe, you shoot your heals, you jump around, but out of nowhere, a zooming Spider-Man swings in and starts webbing you. You try to dash away, but you're out in the open. He hits all the webs, does his combo, now you're dead. Your res beacon is gone, your team is down a healer, and you end up losing the point. This is a really common scenario that happens, but now, let's try that again and implement corners. The rocket is still behind his team, still pumping heals. However, this time, when the Spider-Man swings in, the rocket just moves slightly away and the Spider-Man can't hit all the webs anymore. But there's also other benefits this rocket would have by playing a corner, besides being able to dodge incoming danger. Every time the rocket has to reload out in the open, he will be in the line of sight of the enemies, making himself basically a sitting duck, as he cannot even shoot or heal while reloading, but the enemies can still shoot him and keep track of his position. But if he was on the corner, he could take cover, reload safely, and then go back out and start healing. Now, I used rocket in this example, but the same thing can be applied to a tank or a DPS when they need to get healed or reload or wait for their abilities. I remember when people started crying about not getting healed or getting dived without help, but most of the time, it was only a matter of playing out in the open, which is why corners are so important for playing the game in general. However, don't let the name deceive you. Corners are not just corners. High ground can also be a corner. If you shift the perspective, you again have 2 different lines of sight, and you can use the ledge of the high ground to play safer and hide from danger. Next up, let's talk about cooldowns. Now, cooldowns are essential for your success as a Marvel Rivals player. Not only will cooldowns help you climb, but they will also teach you how to recognize and punish enemy mistakes. Of course, different heroes have different cooldowns, but the way you think about them is very similar. To put it simply, cooldowns are based around a yes or no question. Every character has to answer this question every time they want to do something. Do you have your cooldowns available? If the answer is yes, then you can go in, be more aggressive, try to make something happen. But if the answer is no, you fall back, play slower, and wait for your cooldowns to come back. For example, imagine a Black Panther. He has the spears on a short cooldown, a dash and a spin, which are longer cooldowns. If this Black Panther tries to go into a fight without his dash and spin, he will find it very difficult to do anything and will most likely die almost instantly. He can't dodge damage, he can't escape quickly, so the enemies will have it very easy to focus him down. But before he tries anything, the correct way to approach it is to ask if he has at least his dash available. And if he does, he can go in and try to do something. Now, don't take this the wrong way. If he doesn't have his cooldowns, doesn't mean he can just AFK around. What it means is that while waiting for the cooldowns to come back, he will look for the next opportunity to use them. Maybe take a different flank, maybe find a target that's isolated. And this also goes back to corners. You can use corners to stay safe while you wait for your cooldowns and search for a new opportunity. Moving on to the roles, the first thing you need to understand is something most people seem to somehow forget, and that is tanks are tanky. They have a lot of HP, they have cooldowns to help them block or reduce damage, they are supposed to be hard to kill. Where most DPS are squishier, but they usually have more damage, more mobility and different playstyles to help them get kills. Lastly, supports are the glue that holds everything together. They have healing, they have utility like reses and damage boosts. Psylocke uses her ultimate, Luna just starts dancing and it doesn't matter anymore. Those unkillable tanks remove the supports and they can fall over very quickly, but it's incredibly difficult to take out a tank that is getting pumped with healing. So this is why it's important to stop wasting abilities and time trying to force kills on tanks, when instead we could be looking for ways and angles to force out supports or kill them. Once you start dealing with supports, the entire enemy team starts falling over. Now, teammates are an unavoidable variable that we all have to deal with. However, regardless of how bad they are, how much they die, or how useless we think they are, we have to remember that we are not in control of their hands, only our own, which is why it's important to stop wasting precious time worrying about how bad they are and use it to focus on how we can be better. But besides that, when we have our cooldowns, when we want to go in, it is essential to look around us and check on our teammates. Are they dead? Are they full or low HP? Are they close? We are checking to see if our team is also ready to go in with us. This is such an important little trick that is criminally underused. This is why you will see Venoms or Hulks or Spider-Man go fight the enemy team before you even have the chance to see the enemies, let alone fight. Then they die and start yelling, "Where's my heals? Oh my god, trash team!" But it's really simple to fix. Every couple of seconds, just look around you and check for your teammates. On top of that, as you're checking for teammates, you can also check for the objective. Do you have people on the point? This way we can avoid scenarios where we miss out on making progress on pushing the cart or capturing the point, or, the worst case, leaving the point in overtime and the game ending instantly. Because, after all, this is an objective-based game. While getting kills and high numbers feels good, their only purpose is to allow us to get the objective. Now lastly, the push and pull of the game. I do have to warn you though, this one can be more difficult to understand as it's not set in stone. It depends on the actual state of the game you're in. However, I will still try to explain it, because once you understand it and it just clicks for you, it will feel like you can see the matrix of the game. But before that, I have to go over what space is. You've probably heard this term before. It's being thrown around by other YouTubers and streamers because it's probably what dictates how the game is played. To put it simply, you feel safer and relaxed when you have your own space. For example, the spawn room. You don't take damage, you are full HP. As you walk out of the spawn room, you also feel generally safe. But as you go closer and closer to the objective, which is where the enemies usually are, you start feeling less safe. Which is why the tanks usually go in the front, because they can survive that danger from enemy space, and supports stay in the back, as far away from the danger as possible. Now, as you start using your cooldowns and attacking the enemies, you increase the danger the enemy feels, or better said, the pressure. So when the enemies feel more pressure, they start backing away from it to get away from the danger. They shrink their danger, and in turn, they lose space. But then they get their cooldowns back, and now they can respond to your danger. Now, you don't have your cooldowns, so you have to take a step back from the danger. This becomes a push and pull movement where each team takes turns with their cooldowns, pushing when they can apply pressure and pulling back when the enemy pressure becomes too high. Here's a clear example. If an enemy Punisher starts ulting, you feel a little bit of panic. You want to hide. His danger level is at its peak, so it's his turn to push and your turn to pull. So the only options are pull back and give space, or respond with a support ultimate like Luna and try to survive it. Then his ultimate ends, so now it's your turn to maybe push. But here's how the other concepts can be applied here as well. If the Punisher didn't do a teammate check and he ults by himself, he will die before he can even do anything. If the Punisher ults and you have a corner to play, you can simply go behind the corner and wait for his ultimate to end. But Imagine how scary it would feel to be out in the open and the enemy Punisher uses his ultimate while being protected by his teammate. However, one issue with all this information is that when I teach it to people, it can feel overwhelming. You try to apply it all at once because it sounds so useful, but then you lose the game, and another game, and another, and another. How can that happen when you have just learned so much about the game? Well, it's like driving a car. If it was your very first day of learning how to drive and I put you straight into traffic, even if you knew all the theory of how to drive, you would still be completely overwhelmed. Instead, you first learn how to move the car from a standstill, then how to brake properly, how to park, and so on. You have to look down at your pedals at first. You have to remind yourself to check your mirrors. You practice those things until they become automatic. Then you start combining them until they become automatic, and over time, you reach a point where driving is as automatic as breathing. But the same goes for playing the game. If you try to apply everything from this video immediately, not only will you learn nothing, but you will also make matters worse. Instead, take one, at most two concepts, and focus on them in your next games. For example, corners. In your next game, every 5 seconds, check yourself to see if you are out in the open or next to a corner. It might sound stupid, but do this enough times and eventually you will start playing around corners without even thinking about them. Then you can focus on another concept until that one becomes second nature. I guarantee you, improving just one of these concepts is enough to help you climb a rank or two, maybe more, because from my experience, people below Grandmaster or Celestial aren't even aware of how bad they ignore these fundamental concepts. But I know it can be hard not even knowing which one of these concepts is your weakest, which one should you focus on, which one is the most important for you. So let's move on to actually using these concepts to get good. Now the first thing we need to fix is your brain. You're currently suffering from elo hell brain. It makes you come up with all of these random excuses for why you're hard stuck. The most common one is probably,
my teammates are always so bad, they're holding me back, I could climb so easy if only I had better teammates.
But if you think that, don't worry, we all do, because it's true. No matter what rank you are, your teammates are always going to act like monkeys, never doing what you expect them to do. Everyone gets bad teammates and faces smurfs, but over multiple games, you will get the smurfs on your team and the bad players on the enemies, so they should average out. But luckily, math can prove why thinking like this is bad. Let's say you're in Platinum. If the enemy team has 6 Plat players and your team has 5 Plat players and you, as long as you play just a little bit better than the average Plat player, your team will have the advantage and you will end up winning more than you lose, even if you're solo queue. And recently, the second excuse I keep hearing about is the rigged matchmaking. The game forcing you to go on losing streaks and messing around with your teammates and enemies. Fine, let's say engagement matchmaking is real. So what? How would that make any difference to you? It wouldn't suddenly make you play any different. Even if it was real, would you all of a sudden stop trying to play your best? No, so it's irrelevant. You still have to go into every game hoping to play as best as you can, no matter what the other players are doing. But this excuse is also instantly destroyed by looking at how any top 1% player can consistently climb out of lower ranks with incredibly high win rates. So instead of wasting our brain on coping with excuses, let's use it to only think about 2 things after every game we play. What can I do better next game? And what mistakes do I need to work on? Because, spoiler alert, even top 500 players make a lot of mistakes during their games. So if they're not playing perfectly, then we definitely aren't playing perfectly either. Imagine if 2 teams would both play absolutely perfectly, it would be an even match. But once people start having slip-ups here and there, things change. Players can and should take advantage of each other's mistakes. But I know that as a low elo player, it can be difficult to know where to look and identify your mistakes, especially while playing. Marvel Rivals is a complicated game with lots of things to think about during each individual match. Trying to focus on not making mistakes while also playing your best and being pressured by the enemies is nearly impossible. So here is the first step to start improving and playing better. Instead of being overwhelmed trying to focus on mistakes during a game, we need to find them with a clear mind. This is where the replay feature comes in clutch. I think it's the most underused tool in the game, because watching your replays is essential. I guarantee you will instantly see mistakes when you start watching back your games. But maybe you don't even know what to look for, so here are a couple of pointers and good starting points. Firstly, your deaths. When people say, just die less, this is how you actually figure out how. Look on the replay timeline and see where you died. Now go there, but 20-30 seconds leading up to that death. Now try and figure out what got you killed. Were you out of position? Were you unaware of the enemy? Basically, just ask any question that could give you an answer. The second thing to look out for during a replay is your ultimate usage. Skip around to when you have your ultimate available. Now, start watching from there and look out for opportunities where you could have used your ultimate. Did you do that in the actual game? If not, where did you use it instead? Skip ahead to when you used your ultimate and ask yourself if it was a good use or not. These are two good starting points for mistakes, but if these stand out the most or there's others more obvious ones, it doesn't matter, because your mistakes are your own. Everyone has unique issues which need their own solutions. However, there's a big trap you need to avoid while watching replays. Don't look at your teammates. Of course, they also make tons of mistakes. Some of them could have made you lose that game, and it's easy to blame them. But like the earlier math has proven, the games are in our own hands. We are the only constant in each game. Everything else is random, so focus on your own mistakes. They are the ones that you have control over. But be careful. Do not try to look for all of the mistakes you could make. Find one obvious problem and focus on that single one during your next games. Ideally a quick play so you don't have to worry too much about winning or losing and can only focus on fixing that one mistake. Now, doing this will improve your game sense and how to play the game correctly. But that's only half the battle. The other half is your mechanical skill. Yes, you do need some level of mechanics to be better. Now, this doesn't mean you have to hop on aim labs for like 5 hours a day, but simply practicing your aim, your hero combos and attacks for like 10 or 20 minutes as a warm-up can have a huge impact on your mechanics. Now, I know not all heroes require insane skills, but it doesn't mean there's nothing to practice for them. For example, on Rocket, being able to wall climb and dash at the same time can greatly increase your chances of survival when you need to avoid being killed by an enemy. So even if your main hero doesn't have complicated combos, you can still practice to improve some small things. Any extra practice can be extremely helpful. It doesn't matter which heroes you play, because having better mechanics will never be a bad thing. Now, of course, if you want to go all in on your mechanics to hard carry every single game, you can do that. You can aim train for hours and train your combos and mechanics, and you will be able to completely diff the enemy. But like I said, mechanics are only half of the game. I've actually seen plenty of Hellas and Punishers with insane aim that are still stuck in Plat or Diamond because they have horrible game sense. It doesn't matter how well you shoot if you're dead half the game. Lastly, you need a practical mindset. And no, I don't mean just be positive, don't be toxic, man. This is actually important. You need to realize that rank is meaningless. If you just play well, you will rank up as a result of that. So stop worrying about winning or losing and instead focus on playing as well as you can. But a good way to tilt less, to be less toxic and to keep a clearer mind is to simply take breaks and stop playing. I see tons of people posting their insane loss streaks of like 7, 8, even 10 games, and I'm just sitting there asking why? Just stop, man. Get some help. I'll be honest with you, I'll stop after just one loss. I take a few minutes to calm down, then I'll probably go and watch the replay to see what I could have done better. Instead, people lose, get tilted and queue up again, lose another game, get even more tilted, and 5 games later you lost over 100 points and dropped a rank. But the problem is that it doesn't only affect you. If you go into a game with a bad mood, you're likely to get mad, be toxic, and ruin your teammates' mood as well. So now they're also tilted and they play bad. You're creating this ocean of toxicity that feeds itself and makes you lose more and more. But instead, you can avoid all of this by simply taking a break. You lose 1 or 2 games, log off, take a few minutes or even a day away. As a serial tilter myself, let me tell you, I know how frustrating this game can be, and sometimes a short break might not be enough. Spend some time away. Maybe use that time to watch your replays and figure out how to play better the next time you hop on the game. Nothing is more detrimental to your progress than tilt and toxicity. But on the other side, I'm sure you can remember a moment where you had a genuinely positive teammate. Maybe he hopped into voice chat, gave good comms, maybe some compliments on your plays, and the general mood of the team was just so much better. If a toxic mood can ruin your team's morale, a positive one can boost it instead. But if you happen to be on the receiving end of someone's toxicity, don't risk it, just mute them. If they are being toxic, I guarantee you there's no value in leaving them open to talk. Good, positive communication can lead to better teamwork, which means better team fights and so more wins. But like I said, all of this can be overwhelming, especially if you're not sure where to start. You could be wasting time and energy on the wrong things and miss out on a lot of progress on your improvement. I know, because that's what I had to go through to get better. Most people in Marvel Rivals are not very good. It's not mean to say, it's just how it is. But what if I told you that playing bad is actually a good thing? In fact, not only is it a good thing, but it's actually the key to getting better and ranking up. You see, a lot of people have this misconception that they're all top 500 players in disguise who play perfectly, but somehow their team is always holding them back. Well, the truth is, not even real top 500 players play perfectly, but they understand that and they abuse that fact in order to get even better than they are. So in this video, I want to show you why playing bad is the first step towards improving yourself in order to be able to solo carry games like a smurf, as well as how you can also take advantage of your bad gameplay and use that to make yourself a better player no matter which rank you are right now. But before we start, we need to clear up a misconception that is holding back a lot of people. It's a larger issue than it seems because it happens in every single competitive game out there. Some people are even aware of it, yet it's still causing problems. In general, people have a binary mindset. Something is either good or bad, like your gameplay. But it happens especially in regards to winning or losing. Now, of course, at the end of the game, you either win or you lose, but the end result is only a symptom of a larger problem. Not only do players think they are the best, but they also want to win every single game they play. However, realistically, that's just not possible for the average player.
Well, you can't expect to win them all.
I think that this quote has to be 100% intended. I don't know if they made it so you don't tilt as much or to help you clear your mind and get your head back in place in order to keep you engaged and playing more, but I am willing to bet that some people after losing a game and hearing this quote will think, you know what, that's true, Galacta. We can't win all of them and that is okay. Which is crazy because even if the game itself is literally telling us to chill down, then why don't most of us do that? I think the answer is because our expectations about ourselves are way too high. Usually they're like,
I'm the best, I'm gonna carry these noobs and win the game all by myself.
But then we are faced with the defeat screen and all of those expectations are broken and we are disappointed in ourselves, which can hurt us a lot. So instead, we try to shift the blame onto our teammates. However, if we lose a game, at least 80% of the time, we lost because we played badly in some way. So ultimately, winning or losing are symptoms of the way we play, good or bad. If we can take a look at how bad our gameplay is and make it less bad, then we will end up winning more. So now, let's go over how we can use our bad gameplay to our advantage. The first step is going in the replay of a game you lost or even a win if you think you played badly. I'm gonna use a random game here as an example so you can understand how to do this yourself and how powerful it can be. We're going to be looking specifically for bad gameplay and try to figure out ways to make it less bad. Now I'm going to do this for multiple players in this game on all the roles, so it doesn't matter what role or hero you play, this will be helpful for everyone. Also, before we start, here's a little challenge. Based on what you see here and the bad gameplay we'll go over, I want you to comment down below what rank you think this game is, but I'm only going to reveal the rank after we go over the game because I bet it will surprise you. So to get things started, nothing crazy happens at the beginning until you take a look at this. The blue tanks are in a bit of a danger, so Dagger goes to try and help them. However, why is Dagger in front of the tanks? As a support, as a healer, this should never happen. This position where you're in front of your tanks should never happen. And of course, because of this, she dies. Because obviously that's not a position where a support should be staying. And now if we speed it up, that single mistake Dagger dying is the sole reason this entire point was lost. Because they lost their primary healer, so of course they're going to be in a lot of trouble. But all of that happened because of that one mistake. Now you could see that and ask yourself, well, how does this bad gameplay help me? Well, here's what we do when you see something like this. Because the way we fix bad gameplay like this is very simple. You see that the mistake is being too far up in front of my tanks, so you realize that, okay, my problem is positioning, being too far ahead, I am not a tank. So now, because you know this, all you have to do is, in the next game, you keep thinking to yourself and reminding yourself as you play, don't be in front of the tanks, don't be in front of the tanks, I'm a healer, I should not be in front of the tanks. That's all you have to do. And if you do this for a couple of games, I guarantee you're going to be playing better because you're focused on not making this same mistake again. So this was for Dagger, so a support role. Now let's look at a DPS role and see what their bad gameplay looks like and what they could have done. So this is the Punisher from the opposite team on the same point around the same timestamp in the game. He almost died here. So because he almost died there, it means that something was not quite right. Now if we take a look before he almost dies, we can see that he is using the high ground and taking an off angle, which is good. However, he is going a bit too far up, which means he is very exposed and easy to see. So he could have made the same play, but instead of going all the way out to the ledge, he could have just started shooting from slightly more backwards. So now, by seeing this, you could also see, okay, when I'm taking an off angle, when I'm peeking like that, I don't need to go all the way out. So now you could go into our next few games and keep thinking to yourself, as you're taking these off angles, as you're taking these more flanky positions, you could be thinking to yourself, I'm not going to show myself that much. I'm going to just take a peek, maybe do some damage, but not leave myself omega exposed. And again, by doing this over a couple of games, you're going to stop overexposing yourself on these peak positions, and so your gameplay will go from bad to actually becoming better. And now let's look at the tank role and see what his bad gameplay looks like and how we can fix it as well. So he is shooting the enemies at a distance before they get to the point, that's totally fine. However, the enemies are quite far away, he's basically full HP, and he's using his shield for basically no reason. And a few seconds later, again, he's full HP and he's using his bubble basically for no reason. Instead, when seeing this, you could be thinking to yourself, okay, I was full HP, I was not in any real danger, so there was no need for me to use my bubble over there. And now, because you are aware of this, you also know how to practice it and how to fix it. So over the next couple of games, as you're playing the game, you could be thinking to yourself, I'm not going to be using my bubble for no reason, I'm only going to be using my bubble for when someone actually needs it, for when someone or me needs to be saved by the bubble. I can use my HP because I'm a tank. My bubble is a longer cooldown and I cannot waste it for no reason. So I'm going to be thinking about opportunities to use my bubble, such as, is this a good moment to bubble? Do I need my bubble right now? I'm taking some damage, but it's not enough for the bubble, so I'm going to keep it for now. Now you could say that these weren't the biggest mistakes or the smallest mistakes, but no matter what you think about them, take a second and try to guess what rank you think this game is. Well, the answer is Celestial/GM1. Now, of course, you could argue that these players are boosted and whatever, but the matter of the fact is, they're probably higher rank than you, and they're still making these mistakes. So imagine how many of these issues are in your own gameplay that you're not even aware of. So if these guys fix their issues and if you fix your issues, imagine how much higher you could climb. But here's a simpler way to look at it. Every single mistake you make, once you fix it, it's maybe a 5% improvement in your gameplay, which leads to maybe 2 or 3% more wins, so you slowly start climbing. But if you keep doing this and you keep finding these issues and fixing them one by one, where one of them being only a few percentages of improvement, now you have maybe 5 plus 3 plus 4 improvements, so now you've got like 12% improvement, which means maybe a 7% increase in your win rate. And I hope I don't have to tell you that a 7% increase in your win rate is quite substantial. It means you will climb without question, but finding and fixing your bad gameplay can be impossible if you don't even know what bad gameplay looks like. So if you don't want to waste time trying to figure it out all by yourself, let me help you skip the bad parts and go straight to making progress. Get my coaching and start seeing improvements right after. Thanks for watching. Now go get some wins.